And a happy Friday to everyone. Thank you so much once again, Robert and John, for coming on. And well, welcome to Stop the FOMO. And today is going to be a huge wrap up of all the OLEDs, the great OLEDs of 2021. And we're talking about the Sony A90J, Sony A80J, LG G1 and C1. And John and Robert, you've had a chance to see the big four, right? All of them?
Yep.
And so, but before we jump into it, I know everyone's really excited. I want to get some housekeeping stuff out of the way because many of you have been asking Robert about launches and dates. And so we'll start going through those things so that we can get those questions out of the way. And so first, Robert, TVs, Sony's, what else is coming out from the Sony lineup that we haven't seen yet this summer or fall?
Very good. Thank you, FOMO, and thanks again for having me here, and thank you to all who are watching today. So yet to be launched are Sony's flagship TVs, the flagship LCDs, which is the 4K HDR X95J and their new 8K Z9J Master Series. Those two will be launching the week of July 26th. So really, let's call it 4th of July on those. And Sony, very kindly, as they always have been so generous with us, has included our company in the first allocation at their shipping. So we'll have them first.
Awesome. And I know a lot of people call and they complain, hey, every time I call electronics, everything is sold out. Can you tell us about what the inventory looks like, your most popular items that they should call, and maybe if you have a Prime Day promotion you want to share with us?
Yes. Well, like all authorized dealers, we also price match every deal and every sale that's going on. So anything in audio, video that's on Amazon's Prime will be available at Value Electronics at the same price. So there won't be any disadvantage. And of course, the advantage to us is working with our company, and that, I don't know if I should say this, but we don't collect sales tax outside of the state as well. And you'll have support from our company. So we're more than competitive with Amazon Prime Day and every other sale that goes on. And you're going to see some very nice sales. I'm sorry I can't talk about things in advance too much, but there are some very nice Amazon Prime deals that we're participating in, as well as promotions that start at midnight on Sunday of this week. So stay tuned to my website as well as others to see what sales will be coming up for this weekend. There'll be, some of them are 2 or 3 day sales, and some of them will be 1 to 2 weeks. But there are some aggressive sales starting Sunday at midnight.
Do you still have any LG C10s left? Because that's the TV I'm recommending to all the non-OLED owners who are going on the first OLED. Like, you don't need the top. I mean, just the C10 will get you so much more than what you had 8 years ago. So what C10 sizes you have available still? Because I know you're matching Amazon, so.
Yes, we are. So we have more G10s, or GX as they call it, than we have in C10s. I think the 55 and 77 just sold out, and we have 65-inch GX or G10s. And we have 77 GXs or G10, and 65 and 55.
That's
and
great.
They are priced very aggressively. Now, some of those sale prices end this Saturday, tomorrow. So
really?
Yes, they're raising the prices because inventory is just about sold out. So there's no reason to discount them that low. So a lot of sales are driven by supply, and supply isn't. Yeah,
that's what they did last year with the C9s. As the rumor came out about the 48 gigabit, 40 gigabit switch didn't make a difference, but people were just rushing to get the C9s, and by the end, it went up like $100. So and well, speaking of the LG, let's talk about the QNEDs again. For those that just joined us, when is the QNED TVs coming out? The different sizes and the 90, the 4K and the 99 8K. Lay it on us, because I think a lot of people are looking at the QNED as the Dolby Vision gaming TV that they're not getting out of the Samsung, unfortunately. Lay it on us.
So yes, it supports Dolby Vision gaming, as well as supporting DTS:X audio So that's very nice that they included that.
Yeah, last year they took it out, right? So
yeah, I have to verify that, but that's my understanding as well. And it's HDMI 2.1, and I believe it's going to be 48 gigabits on all 4 HDMI inputs on that.
on the QNED.
On the QNED. And they will be launching the week of July 26th also. And I think I'm going to get them a week earlier as well. And I might be able to get some evaluation units even before that. So I am very, very optimistic for that product this year.
What about the 85-inch size? Are you getting it at that time? Because I'm so excited to compare the 85-inch sizes with the QN900, the QN90. I mean, a lot of people, they're taking their new jobs, newfound money, whatever it is. I have never seen so many people buy such large size. I mean, the fact that the Sony 83-inch and the C1 83-inch are just waiting list. Yeah. This is a great time.
Yeah. So LG's QNED, which is a mini LED, by the way, will be actually an 86-inch size.
86-inch. Okay.
86, yeah.
And you'll have that in July?
Yes, we will. End of July.
End of July.
No, early July, beginning of July. That's
okay.
Correct. Beginning of July.
Okay.
And they've done amazing things with an IPS panel to deliver deep, rich blacks. So they're not plagued with the raised blacks anymore that they were in the past.
Well, rumor is from other countries that have it, they're saying it looks better than the QNED. Now, it's rumor. I don't want to hold you to the rumor, but that's pretty amazing because these are also retailers that carry both. And they're like, this looks pretty good. I think Samsung's going to have a battle in his hands. Okay. And lastly, I know everyone's waiting for this. Do you have any word Sony VRR update?
So because you had given me the advanced question on that,
yes.
I did quiz my engineer friends at Sony. And they say, it's guaranteed still happening. I'm sorry it's taking so long. They tell me that they're waiting for some standards changes to be made on variable refresh rate, but on particularly on the where it turns on and off your other equipment.
ALLM. Auto low latency mode.
Yeah, there's another spec that slips me for the moment, that there's some spec changes. And they want to get the latest updates from HDMI on the spec changes before they put it out. So the latest I hear is no later than Christmas. It'll be a Christmas present this year.
Wow.
It's the latest.
That's exciting. And
they still confirm it's absolute 100%. And this is right from engineering.
Can you ask engineering if there's a hope for 4K 120 or just Dolby Vision gaming in Dolby Vision in game mode? Right now, it's not possible in game mode. And it doesn't even have to be 4K 120, as a matter of fact. If you can get 4K 60 in game mode, it would be amazing because people are looking at it and they're saying, it looks so great, but it's in non-game mode. So there's latency. Any word on that? Can you ask and follow up? What are your thoughts?
I need to follow up before I can speak so I can get the correct and accurate answers right from the engineer's mouth.
Yes. Excellent.
So I just wrote that down so I won't forget. And we'll come back and we'll follow the questions and answers here, and I'll post what I find out about that.
Absolutely.
On your channel.
And so now, what everyone's waiting for, John, how many TVs have you been calibrating in the last 2 months?
I've lost track. I don't remember anymore.
It's triple digit though.
I feel like I'm at a factory on an assembly line.
Yes. Yeah.
We can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. So this is your personal opinion, obviously. You've gone through the 4 types of TVs, A90J, A80J, C1, G1. For your use, which would you bring home to your lovely wife and why?
I already did.
Oh, the Value Electronics Special. What'd you get?
I took home a 65 A90J.
Why was that?
Because it's my personal opinion on the whole thing is like you can calibrate an LG really reference. Like you saw this on AVS. There's a lot of calibration controls. You can really, on paper, make it reference, right? And the Sony is not as reference, but you can get it really good, right, with the user controls. But at the end of the day, when you put the two side by side, the picture quality on the Sony is just so much better. Even to this day, I said this when we first got them, the specular highlights are still superior. The set is even like, I'll put it this way, it's just way brighter. I mean, forget about HDR. HDR, the G1, I measured one today, it maxed out at 740 nits. The Sony A90J easily goes to 780 and sometimes 800, depending on how much time has been broken in on it. Effortlessly. I mean, it bypasses 740 like in a second, right? You know what I'm saying? So, and even SDR, right? If you go to if you put it on custom pro, if in custom and put the peak luminance to high, and you put the OLED light to maximum on the Sony, you get about 460 nits, full, 10% window SDR. The same thing on the LG. You're lucky if you get 250 nits. It's almost double, right? And it really is. You can see it. I mean, it's not even something that you just measure. So and then today we took the G1 that we got in, the 55 G1, and it looked great in vivid mode. We were watching it by itself.
Wait, in vivid mode?
Well, we had it in the showroom burning in.
Oh, right.
And, breaking in. So we say, wow, this looks pretty good. So today I measured it, then we took it out and put it next to an 83-inch A90J. Now you would think the A90J being 83-inch would be a little soft, right? The picture quality, because it's so big, right? With FDR. And the 55 G1 that we had should be like super sharp, right? Because it's the smallest size. But for some reason, the A90J 83-inch, right, Robert, perceptually was sharper than the 55 LG G1. And
so no, let's talk about apples to apples. Now you brought up 83-inch. Have you guys got a chance to see the C1 83-inch? Because how does that compare? Let's go sharpness. Did you differences? Tell me, because people are like, it's $2,000. 83-inch LG C1 versus 83-inch A90J. Just talking, what are the differences?
Yeah, the A90J is always sharper. I don't know. The processing, what's making Sony successful this year is the picture processing, right, Robert? I mean, that's basically it.
That's correct.
It's the same panel. I mean, these are, at these sizes, they're all Evo panels, even on the C1s, right? You can see the red rim around it. You can go in the service menu and validate them. It's the same panel. But basically, the Sony, whatever they're doing, you don't know. It's just the way the specific picture algorithms. It's just super sharp. Even in that high, I mean, 83-inch. Think about it, SDR, right? Mm-hmm. We're not talking cable, right? But we're talking about good, 1080p content. It looks fantastic. Now I'm not saying it doesn't look good on the LG. It does. Right. It looks great. I mean, if you take the LG and put it by itself, it's fine. But if you put it side by side with the Sony, you could see it. And it's not over sharpening. That's another thing. Like in the past, Sony's picture processing over sharpens some stuff, right? And you can see it. And a lot of times people would turn it off. But this year, it's just right. Even if we look at it with the Spears and Munsell disc, there's hardly any of artifacts or any kind of things going on there. It's just the way they're doing it. It's superior in my mind.
So let's take it down a notch, only because many will say, well, of course, the A90J with the heat sink and the premium and the master, the A80J versus the G1, because many thought the A80J was really designed for the C1, but a lot of reviewers are saying, no, it's actually comparable to the G1. So 77-inch G1 is available, 77-inch A80J is available. What are your choices? What are the differences?
Well, I mean, let's talk about picture quality wise. I mean, calibration wise, they calibrate the A80Js calibrate identical to like the C1s. The same peak luminance, roughly. It's like over 700 nits. Roughly 700, 720, somewhere in that range. Very similar. Picture quality, Robert, what do you think? I mean, the A80J for that price is unbelievable, right?
Yeah, the A80J has a perceived better picture quality. The measurements may not prove it, but when you see them side by side, you can see the advantages of the new XR processor. I did want to mention 2 points that prove as to what John is saying is actually happening, even though the measurements don't seem to point to that. So I spoke with Sony's engineers saying that, hey, when you look at a 10% window, which is the standard window size for testing peak lumens, Sony doesn't put all that processing power and all their peak lumens capabilities that they have on the 10% window like LG does. So when you look at the specs, you don't see much difference. But if you could measure 1% or 2%, Sony is much brighter. They reserve their power for specular highlights. And that's because they come from the motion picture industry. And they know when you're watching HDR, the high dynamic range peak lumens is never more than 1 or 2% of the image size of the whole image area. So they're trying to reproduce the best picture quality, not win awards for a 10% window size. They don't care about that. The other thing to remember is because the A90J is brighter, period, is brighter, that it's not just about the brightness that we're enjoying and seeing. It's about, this is more important, a much bigger dynamic tonal range with much better color volume. So when you have a bigger dynamic tonal range, you have more separation and more detail from each step of illumination. You have more steps of illumination. You have more steps, larger tonal range. And it gives you much more detail in the image, naturally dynamic looking, almost 3D looking. And that's a big difference from what you're going to see from any other TV. So it looks, the perception is it's sharper, but it's really more detail in a bigger dynamic tonal range that's exclusive to Sony's A90J.
Now,
so those are the
what about the A80J? Because it also has the XR chip. What are the differences between the A80 and the A90? Because a lot of people are saying, well, 77-inch is large, 83-inch is an extra 6 inches, but can I get away with a 77-inch A80? How close am I getting to A90J? And I know, John, I'm sure you're getting a lot of these questions because you're looking at the performance. What can you guys say to stop the FOMO for the A80J buyers?
The A90 is just brighter. I mean, that's really it. I mean, the picture processing is pretty comparable. Yes. It's just brighter. I mean, and if you put the two together, I mean, they're so similar. You know what I'm saying? I think the heat sink is just a better design overall because Sony can then push the panel, dynamic. It's not they can do things dynamically. And that's what happens with this TV. The A90J, lots of stuff is dynamic. And depending on how hot the panel is, what the content is, what you're looking at. And that's why it looks so fantastic all the time, because there's some intelligence behind this. That's with the LG and all the others. But it has additional control so that it could push the panel harder without damaging it, right? So I think in the end of the day, the Sony design with the heatsink and Panasonic, of course, with the heatsink is the superior design. I can tell you when I was pushing the G1 today, and you could really see, and I think Vincent Teo showed this also, you could really see the image retention just sitting there,
without the heatsink. That's without, because it doesn't have the heatsink, right?
Right, yeah, and you can really see it, whereas on the A90J, it's within, seconds, it's gone.
And John, we have a fan here. Question for John, what are you running during your break-in period? Can you guys explain your break-in period process? Because a lot of people, they don't want to do it themselves. They get it wrong. They end up with image retention like I did with He-Man because I got it wrong. So tell us what you guys do, what special discs you have, how long you run it for before you actually start calibrating.
Well, when you break in stuff, there's a couple of things you can do. There's no real magic, because the bottom line is, like if you, Dwayne Davis, D-Nice, he has some break-in slides that he put together, which Robert has and I have, and Dwayne has shared them with us, and basically it exercises all the pixels you need, uniformly, if you're just going to run slides until you start using the TV. But once you start using the TV, everything's randomized, right? So it just gets you to the point where you can say, okay, now everything's broken in, everything's 100% equal. So there is some merit to doing that. But on the other hand, if you don't want to do that and run something like that, you could just run content. You can put content on a disk, on a USB drive, which we have, and we run content, or you can put it in store mode and have it. The real key is whatever you're running, you want to run it in HDR. Because for some reason, when you break the TV in HDR, it's better. You get better results at the end of the day.
I want to add to that.
Yeah, go ahead.
In the evening hours after we're closed, we run the break-in slides, red, green, blue, white, in various luminance levels. During the day when the store is open, we run HDR content. So I find that to be my favorite break-in method. So it's a little combination. And we also, after maybe just once a week, we run them for about a week, 200 hours. We'll shut the TV off for a good hour and a half in between. So it gets a little break in between. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Right. No.
But that's important because, the thing is, when you do before, when you turn it off, it then does its automatic pixel refresh.
It does.
Yeah, the automatic pixel refresh, at least on the LG, is very aggressive.
Yes.
We've seen some sets like out of the box. I'm looking at them and I go, "Whoa, what is this?" Right? And then we turn it off for a couple of minutes and then turn it back on and it's gone. It's like 90% better. So they've changed a lot of stuff. They've been listening to people about the uniformity, but I got to tell you, the uniformity, screen uniformity on the Sonys has been really consistent and very good. All right, I don't think we got a bad one yet, right, Robert? Just one you had, right?
One. We had one bad one so far.
Right.
That's on the 83-inch.
Right.
I think we had, that was the A80s. We had about 4 bad ones out of about 80 of them on the A80Js. That we do the QC process. And by the way, I just noticed Keep It Classy, who I'm a fan of, by the way.
Oh, he's going to join us as soon as he gets home. So he has some questions for John because he's like, John is his hero. He's like, I got so many questions for John.
Yeah.
He goes, just come on, Classy.
Less image retention on the A90J. And he is 100% correct about that. That heat sink cooling system is very smart. And the Sony engineers, again, shared with me, even though they drive the panel harder, the heat dissipation protects the panel against burn-in and image retention. So again, Keep It Classy is correct on that, and it's confirmed by engineering as well.
I spoke to him. I talked to him on the phone today.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Questions. Yeah, he couldn't wait for the.
He couldn't wait. I know. It's like, oh. Now this leads me to emphasize one thing is, so Robert, you carry LG as well. But if anyone just joined us in the last 20 minutes, like, is this a Sony love fest? So let's flip it. When would you recommend someone get a G1 or a C1? Because oftentimes with the sales being what they are, prices come very close. So give me the use case for the LG C1 or G1 series. Because right now I have a lot of LG OLED owners looking at their return period and they're ready to swap. So why get the LG?
By far, hands down, by far the best gaming console, gaming monitor, period. And it's not a small amount better. So if you do even casual gaming, you're going to enjoy the C1. Now, remember, John and I and yourself as well are very much nitpickers. So we're not maliciously exaggerating. It's true in what we see, what we're saying. But the difference, especially if you separate it and put it in 2 different rooms, these are world-class OLED TVs. And yes, Sony is better. And it's more than a small amount better. But it's not dramatically better. So
small amount, but not dramatically.
Now I do like the G1 for its form fit and its minimalist design, and it holds tight to the wall with the included wall mount. I do like the gallery series of the artwork that they put into their TVs that you don't have on a Sony. If you bought a 83-inch, it's $2,000 or $3,000 less, in $2,000 less. So its price point is better. So I like the gallery artwork they put in. I like the G1 for its form fit and no gap wall mount. I like it for gaming. There are some advantages. The Sony is going to deliver a better picture by a little bit more than a moderate amount in several elements of picture quality, particularly the A90J. But you're really paying a serious premium when you're looking at a 55 or a 65-inch especially.
And then the other thing, just to add to what Robert was saying, the calibration controls on the LG are really
John.
Superior than anything else. I mean, you could fix almost everything that could possibly go reasonably everything that you can get that you could possibly go wrong with all the controls on there. So it is, you can make it reference where you can't do that with the Sony. I mean, you get it pretty close, but you really can't on paper have the same, unless you're really lucky and get like a really good set from Sony. Just
that takes us to a question where a lot of people are assuming, and I need you guys to confirm because you see so many of these TVs out of the box. Is the Sony, and we're talking A80J. Let's forget the Master Series. Out of the box. Go ahead, John. Go for it.
This is the most amazing thing. I was telling Robert this today. Every calibrator has their own process. They have their own ideas of what's right and wrong and everything else, But But I'm an engineer, right? So I look back and I see what people think, what normal people, go around. So anyway, as you know, we found this year, and it was going on for a while, but this year every set is coming in from LG and Sony with a white point that's near the jut offset, which is not for OLEDs, it's for RGB OLEDs, right? So it wasn't made for WRGB. It's a totally different technology, and so everybody just dismisses it and says, well, it's no good, don't do it, yada, 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 right? So, but we've been playing around with that because first of all, we go into the showroom, right? Robert's got like 20 TVs and everybody's jaws up, hanging open saying, wow, this looks so great. Everything looks so natural. It's so beautiful. Every set's set to judge, right? In the showroom because they're out of the box, right? So then I go ahead and I measure these sets if I, with the jut offset in the software, and they're unbelievably accurate. I mean, some are like delta E of like 1.8. I mean, there's no way that you're going to see a difference. So, well, as Vincent always says, Vincent here, I like to quote him sometimes. It's under the visual threshold of delta E. You can't see anything wrong. Obviously, if you have these super trained eyes and stuff, you can. But to be honest, the normal person isn't. So it's really good. LG, the same thing. They're coming in really good. I mean, no set has been really way out of whack. So then we made a little. When I took the 65-inch home, the A90J, I did like a little, I just by accident, I was playing around with it. And I had the A90J out of the box next to my meticulously calibrated LG CX, right? With every known, I tried both high-end software, Color Space and CalMan with all the, tricks that we know to make it perfect. That, we set the LG to D65. And I'm just watching it, wasn't doing any testing. And I'm noticing like the match was sometimes it was better than we do it at the shootout. I mean, it was like, wow. It was like the perceptual match looked fantastic. It was like, this is great. I didn't do any work to make it happen. Like the skin tones are absolutely the same.
And that's an A90J out of the box, untouched.
Untouched, right? Yeah. I haven't even put the meter on it, right? I just set up the brightness the same and everything else. It was unbelievable. So the A90J sitting there at this jud white point or this 0.3067, 0.318, whatever. That's the jud point. It's out of the box, no calibration. I'm sure it's tight, and it's like looks identical to my eyes, at least side by side, to the LG at D65. So I'm going, wow, this is fantastic, right? I mean, obviously, you can get into minutia and start talking about differences in whites and things like that, but just at a high level, very good. All right. So to be honest, if you don't get your set calibrated and you get it out of the box from Sony or LG and you're happy with the white point, that's the big question, right? They're great this year.
Wow.
Really
across both brands, not any one model.
No, both are really good. Yeah. Right. So right, Robert. I mean, it's. I showed Robert this today because we measured the CX against the the G1 against the A90J, and you could see it right away.
Yeah. And before we get on to this very good question about the JZ2000, again, thank you to Classy Tech, because he brought out a point I should have said, and I wanted to make sure everybody understands it, and that is that LG just announced last week the G1 will now have an additional second year to fifth year warranty on the OLED panel only. The part would be replaced at no charge. The customer would pay only labor to replace the panel if it develops a defect within 5 years. So that's another LG advantage only on the G1. And now, if I can answer the very nice question on the JZ2000 that just came up.
Please, yeah.
Great. Well,
wait, so let me read the question for those who are not watching but listening. Thank you, Cyborg GT, for the super chat. Apart Panasonic JZ2000, that's last year's Panasonic heatsink flagship. What is better than the A90J? So he's implying that the Panasonic is better. And I think you guys got that one chance to look at the Hollywood Select. Can you compare the A90J to the Panasonics you had and maybe project into what's happening with the heatsink Panasonic this year?
Well, let me just say one thing, and I'll let Robert tell you the news. So when we had the HD2000s,
yes,
I thought they were great. And I thought the picture quality was excellent, and I said that many, many times. I had never seen a Panasonic And again, going back to Vincent's shootouts and stuff, I never understood why the Panasonic always won, but now I understand. You know, it's a very good set. We never really had a Panasonic in the showroom with the A90J, so I could put it next to each other. But the A90J, in my, again, just from memory, is probably going to be a real contender to the Panasonic this year. We'll have to see how that pans out. The thing I'm curious to see is one of the pluses on the Sony is that even at very, very high luminance levels, the saturation on the colors stayed really good, and you could see it, you know. Whereas on the LG, they start to wash out a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be interesting to see if Panasonic is able to, have that same, maintain that same saturation at very high luminous levels, because now they're at like 900 nits, right? So they're even brighter than the Sony. So are those, high luminance color, is going to be washed out? Is it going to be a saturated Sony? So in my mind, that picture processing thing is going to really be interesting to see. Now, didn't Panasonic come out with a new processor this year?
Yes,
well,
they did.
Robert,
I want to add a little something to that. So I spoke again with my engineer and product management folks who are very good friends as well at Sony on this. And I asked them about how did they get the color saturation and the color volume to be so accurate when they're driving the panel so hard. You look at a setting sun going into the ocean, you see all the yellows and oranges that are naturally there that you don't see respectfully on a Panasonic or an LG. And they said, we are mathematical geniuses. We don't just boost the white in the white WRGB. We boost, and not equally, the red, green, blue. We have a formula based on the peak lumens, how much of each red, green, blue, and white should be boosted to keep the color fidelity and color saturation perfect. They are mathematical geniuses because there's a lot of math in doing that, and they know how to do this. So
that's exactly what I heard, right? I heard that LG boosts the white or blue to get it brighter, whereas Sony is...
So it's Panasonic, but that's not the right answer because you're washing out the peak, the high lumens level areas.
Well, despite all that, we still have someone like Buddy 305 Love who still wants the JZ or HZ or any Panasonic. So, Robert, do you have an update either for your special program, or he wants to ship it from somewhere?
Yeah.
Share with us. What's the game plan?
So as I think most of the viewers know, Panasonic very generously made us one of only 2 dealers in the United States that were authorized to sell Panasonic OLED TVs in the United States of America. One was exclusive to the broadcast industry only and to the Hollywood studios, and the other was myself to sell to those markets as well as to consumers. I speak with the top executives on a very frequent basis about bringing in JZ2000s, JZ1500s into the US. And I will have a definitive answer at the very end of August where we may bring some in September. Now it's very, very unlikely. So I don't want to overstep the opportunity. But Panasonic executives directly said to me, it was my tenacious personality of not giving up that made them give me the exclusive rights to sell them the first time around, which was this model year. And I just don't give up. Because
what can I say? It's like New Yorkers. That's what it's about. New Yorkers.
Yeah. Well, I don't give up easily. And I love their products, and I admire that company very, very much. And their product belongs here in the U.S. So I'm not very optimistic, but we have not given up, and we'll have a definitive answer at the end of August. And with all that said, nobody that wants a Panasonic would be unhappy with an A90J.
And that's perfect timing because at the end of August, you'll have had the QNEDs and the X95J. Yes. So and the Z9. Oh, I forgot to ask, Z9J. Can you share with us any updates or launch dates for the Z9J yet?
Yes, but confidentially, so don't tell anybody.
No, my lips are sealed.
The week of July 26th, the beginning of August.
Oh, I can't wait. August is going to be a great month.
You heard it officially and first here at FOMO.
Yep. And off the record, right? So everyone, keep your lips closed. And speaking of everyone, thank you, Pat Strivera, for that super chat. He purchased last year's TU9000 earlier this month, and now the 2021 model is dropped to the same price. Is it worth the hassle to return the 9000 to get the 9010? Well, the good news for you, Pab, is normally at this level, it's not huge differences. It's very minor, and it's your hassle. So I think it's close enough. I've been looking at it closely, but I don't have it myself, so I can't say definitively it's better. But generally, year to year with Samsung, it's more of the lifestyle conveniences. Maybe this, that, the other might be a little bit better. Robert, do you have any opinions on their, I guess this is their Crystal Series flagship, the 9000. What are your thoughts on going from a 2020 to 2021?
I think you nailed it. You said it very accurately. It's a minimal difference. I don't know exactly because I haven't compared the two side by side, but I don't think there's any reason for you to do that. It's a minimal difference, so I wouldn't worry about that.
Okay. And buddy, thank you for the super chat. Follow-up question for John. Will the LG QNED 99, that's the 8K LG mini LED, will it hold a candle to any of the 2021 OLEDs?
So let me see. I used to use this when I worked for Verizon. It's my crystal ball.
The crystal ball.
Yeah.
Really can't tell. I don't really know. I really be honest. I don't like to guess like that. I mean, be honest. Until I see the QNED 99, we'll make a decision. But
Shootout.
Yeah.
Hey, can you guys give us an update on the shootout? This is the perfect time to talk about it. So
also,
dates, times.
Confidentially, okay?
My lips are sealed.
Thank you. We're 99% sure, and we're just about to sign a contract in New York City at a gorgeous luxury building for Sunday, September 12th, and Monday, September 13th, for our 2021 TV Shootout. And I hope that you'll be coming out, and I'm going to help you do that.
Once you confirm the date, email me, and I will get my flight there. And I'm so excited. I haven't been to New York since was it the 9/11? Honestly, it's been, or my sister's graduation from Albany. That was the last time, right?
And the QNED 90 and QNED 99 will be participating and competing, as well as a G1, because we only use the flagship models. We're going to do a 4K event, and then we're going to quickly do an 8K event, and then we're going to take the two kings of TV and put them butt next to each other to see if you can see any difference in an 8K television, with 8K content dumbed down to 4K for the 4K TV and 4K content scaled up for the 8K. And then we are talking about, and it's not confirmed, and you're going to hear it first here as well, doing my very first projector shootout on the following day, Monday.
That's exciting. I love that you're upscaling 4K to 8K, because 99.9% of the time, that's what people will be doing. And even the Z9J, it can't natively process 8K this year anyway. So apples to apples, I'd love to see how they all compare in their battle of the 4K upscale to 8K. And at the largest size, which is what we're supposed to see as a difference. So I'm pretty excited about that. So hey, so Classy Tech is here. Hey, Classy, thanks for joining us.
Hello.
How you doing?
I'm sure you're on, and I'm sure you'll be able to answer all these questions awaiting us. And here's one more super chat. Thanks, Andrew Toole. Thoughts on the A8H versus the A80J? And while we're on it, guys, let's throw in the A9G as well, because they're still on sale and they're priced. It's still pretty expensive. So people debating between the A9G, the A8H, and the A80J. John and Robert, what are your recommendations?
You can still get an A9G, really?
Yeah.
They're still selling them.
They raised the price up.
They raised the prices.
Yeah.
They're doubling down.
Yeah.
My opinion is I always go with the newer stuff, and to me, you know how I was thinking about this on the way home tonight, right? Every year we get these like little minimal upgrades to OLED, and we're always sitting around the table trying to squeeze out whatever the heck these minor little tidbits are. Where this year it's like a fire hose, right? With Sony, right? It's just a ton of stuff. I mean, that you can clearly see, and you don't need any real super experts to show you this stuff. So in my mind, I would always go with the A90J, and if not, if you want to go a little cheaper, the A80. That blows away everything else.
And I just want to add to that, the XR processor is the single biggest processor upgrade I've seen in the last 10 years. So this is a big upgrade, and I would agree. This year especially, in the Sony line, you would want to get the 2021 model.
Agreed. And
Clive,
yeah.
can you add to that?
Yeah, please. Go ahead.
No.
Oh.
See, Tech, are you with us? Audio?
Yeah, I'm here.
He's just listening.
Your feelings on 2020 versus 21 on Sony?
Oh, I definitely think they're like in a different class year over year this year. And with the XR processor, from what I've seen, the NVIDIA Shield has the AI enhancement for upscaling for sub 4K content. I think the XR processor is almost as good as that, but it can be used on everything.
Yes.
And I like to use the two of them together, and it makes like 720p streams look better than Blu-ray.
Yes.
And this is kind of relates to what we talked about earlier, what you mentioned, whereas Sony is deep in Hollywood, but so is Panasonic. And Cyber GT, he's on the fence. Sony or Panasonic. So you have the XR system this year, which is, like we said, it is a huge generational upgrade for the processing. But then Panasonic's HCX Pro was what beat Sony the last few years.
That's
and
right.
I know you guys saw the comparison with last year's Hollywood Select. Can you guys compare the HCX versus the XR this year? Has Sony caught up, or who has the lead now in processing?
I guess we all don't really know, because we have to see the JZ series to really have them side by side and test them ourselves.
You really can't tell unless you put things side by side.
Yeah.
It's amazing what pops out at you when you do that.
Yeah.
So here's hoping Panasonic gives you permission, Robert,
Yes.
to at least bring in the HZ this year. I'm pretty excited to see what's up with
It would
that.
be the JZ most likely, but we'll see. It might be.
Oh yeah, and hey, I'm not complaining, because
Right.
what's interesting is I saw a flat panel review of the A90J, and last year's HZ still had, in his opinion, better reference quality picture, because it's got brighter this and that. So it's interesting that arguably it's still one of the top TVs out there, despite being on the older non-EVO panel. But I think that brings up a good question for you, John. You've had a chance to, obviously last year, calibrate all of the non-old panel, right? EVO panel, however you want to call it. And then this year, almost everything is EVO. As far as actual picture quality, did you notice any difference that may help or hurt the TVs using them?
This is the big thing I keep talking about on AVS.
I know.
There's no like special reviewer or special calibrator with the magic, everything, right? That says, oh, the TiVo panel has such much better picture, right? Versus the old, right? That you just don't hear that. You haven't heard that once, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the reason is because when you put them together and they're both calibrated, if you negate the brightness, it looks identical to me. The only way you know you have an EVO panel is if you put up a 5% or less full screen gray. You'll see a magenta tint all the way around the perimeter of the screen, and that's how you know you have the.
That's what I've heard.
Panel, right? It may be faint, but it's there. But yeah, I haven't really seen anything that was so miraculous that says you have to get this one. In fact, to be honest with you, when I'm calibrating, it's one of the challenges I have, because you have to profile the meter differently for the different panels. So with the LG, I can go in and look in the service menu. But before we, knew how well that was set up, I'd have to go looking at the tint and profile these, do a spectral analysis on it to see which panel I was dealing with. Because in the beginning, we're getting all different types of stuff coming in the store.
Right. Now, speaking of Sony use cases, and this is one I'm going to have a hard time answering, because thank you, Jordan, for the super chat. He mostly watches sports on DirecTV, no gaming. That makes it easy. He's debating between the 75-inch X95J or the A80J 77-inch. And my issue is, I've heard DirecTV, if it's out of box, it's completely different upscaling. What are your experiences in this recommendation? I normally would say just the OLED, because I hear dark the living room, but are you guys thinking for DirecTV, no gaming, and we'll go clockwise, starting with you, Robert. What are your thoughts?
Well, thank you. And this is a really good question, by the way. Again, I worked on the development of the new processor and with the Sony engineers. They invited me. I was one of a handful of people that were invited. So I worked very closely on the X95J and the A80J and all the other new models. There's an advantage to the X95J in that it's going to reach about 1600 peak lumens. Now, you don't need that for peak lumens brightness, especially in a dark room, but there is less of the compression of the high dynamic range of HDR content, which doesn't help you with sports on DirecTV, but it would help you when you're watching a 4K Blu-ray disc or streaming 4K HDR from Netflix, Amazon, Hulu. It's going to give you less compression, so you're going to have a better, possibly a better HDR. But you can't beat the emissive display of an OLED. So my overall answer would be buy the A80J for the dark room. And motion resolution should be better. Blacks are better. I would say an A80J is the correct answer.
Okay, fair enough. John, what are your thoughts about this question?
Same thing, A80J.
And Classy.
I'm going to be the other one because I see sports and having the A80J, seeing the image retention and knowing about the image retention prevention where it dims down the screen. I actually might suggest the X95J so you don't have to worry about the dimming with sports.
And I have to say once again, since I don't watch enough sports on mine, I'm going to defer to Classy. That if sports is important to you, especially if you watch all types, hockey and whatever, right? At some point, you might hit hockey. And I don't have an A80J. Is that dimming? Is the ABL that aggressive? Can you guys kind of address that?
It's not even the ABL. So Tech with KG actually went on their site and read into their burn-in preventions. And they have an image retention prevention system mechanic. So if you're in SDR, mostly it's an SDR. If there's, static elements in games, or I see a lot of people having trouble watching soccer, if it's very similar imaging on the screen, it's going to dim it down to about half its brightness.
Mm-hmm.
And this is on the A80J.
And the A90J, but because the heat sink, I think it probably wouldn't be as much on that.
That's right. That's why I didn't notice. And of course, DirecTV is a lot of SDR sports. It's not going to be an HDR. Okay. Well, excellent answers. Thank you. And we'll go down the list here. Thank you, JMacD. What would be better for watching hockey? Between the A90J or the Z9J or the X95J? Coming from a 60-inch Pioneer Elite Plasma, I think all these would be great, where motion interpolation is not required. Please sell to Canada, Robert. So we'll start with Classy this time, since you did so well last time. Sports. Which one?
More
hockey.
Sports and hockey, all that white, you're going to definitely hit the ABL, most likely. And if he's coming from a plasma and he's worried about the motion interpolation, the X95J should have enough brightness that you can turn, the black frame insertion up to get that motion resolution and have enough brightness to spare.
And I have to say the black frame insertion has also improved. Normally, I don't like it because it's dim, but the worst part is the flickering. This time, although it's obviously dimmer, I didn't notice the flickering. So I thought, hey, maybe this is usable in certain conditions, and maybe with a Z9J that is super bright, we expect the BFI could actually be usable. So I'm going to say Z9J. Just for that, use black frame insertion. John, what are your thoughts on this question? I
say stay with the 60-inch Pioneer Elite.
Old school to the max. I love it.
I really. The problem with these sports questions, I don't really watch sports. So
Me either.
I'm really trying to ask, but
so on this one, I go with FOMO. I say the Z9J. It's gonna hit about 3,600 nits at peak lumens. It's gonna look like you're at the hockey rink with it. It's going to be a really good dynamic. The only thing I'm concerned about with anybody that owned a Pioneer Elite, one of the world-class plasmas, is that's an emissive display. You get a little spoiled by emissive displays. And I always say the successor should always be an OLED, another emissive display, which is much brighter, much blacker, and seems to follow that trend of what you get spoiled and used to.
And when you said 3,600 nits. Is that a guess, or did you hear that leak somewhere?
It's a very,
from China. Just say it's from China.
yes, it's very, very educated guess.
Hey, Sammy Debs, thank you for the super chat. 77-inch A80J or the 85-inch X950H for $32.50.
Yeah.
Where are these prices coming from?
Yeah.
Robert, you must be like checking out your website. So for the same price, if it's in a dark room, but then you get the larger one, I have to go with the A80J because once you've been to OLED, you can't go back. I'm one of those people. And we'll go across, starting with Robert. What are your thoughts helping Sammy Debs out?
So when you're buying a 950H, you're getting the last year's processor. Again, this was a big upgrade. It's been in the works for 3 years, this new XR processor. It's really a major leap forward in technology. And again, I like the OLED display. So I would definitely think in this case, you would want the 77 A80J for only $200 more than the 85-inch 2020 X950.
Right. John, I'm almost going to predict. I know what you're going to say, but go ahead. What are you going to say?
To be honest, I really liked the 950H. It was a really good set. In fact, you still have that. You still have it next to you. I forgot.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, it's a really good set if you like LCD. But the one thing that is really evident is when Robert, when we had some of those really super bright Sonys in the store last year and on display, and we had the OLEDs next to them. During the day, there's no question the LCDs that were super bright. We had one of those 4,000 nits.
That's
They
right.
blew away everything else. But as the day wore on in the winter, especially when it got dark early and stuff, and you can actually see, hour by hour, it started getting darker and darker in the store. All of a sudden, the OLEDs come to life, right? And then you can't compare them. It just depends on your viewing environment.
Agreed. And Classy, what are your thoughts? You're like the counterculture.
I'm gonna say A80J and then sit a little closer or get a long arm wall mount.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's another good one. All right.
Yes.
And next one up, thank you, David, for the super chat. Glad to hear that there is going to be a shootout this year.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm glad too. Are we allowed to attend? Yes. Can you share with us the public tickets, all that? Will this give Panasonic an incentive to sell you the JZ2000 just in time for the shootout? So yeah, what about the public, Robert? What's happening here?
It does. And we are going to be open to the public, but we're going to limit the seats to the public to a max of 50 people. And we're only going to permit people, please forgive me, that have proof of full vaccination. And so please forgive me, I'm sorry, but that's the rules.
Sure.
And we're going to have 50 live participants from the public.
Love it.
And we'll have a panel of, we got a fantastic panel of expert judges. We're speaking to senior colorists, senior film finishers from Netflix, from Technicolor, to sit on our panel of expert judges. So we have a world-class panel this year.
Can we say who the special guest is this year?
I think we can. So this is 99.99% sure.
All right.
John, do you want to leak it or you want me to leak it?
Go ahead. You did all the work.
We are bringing in Stacy Spears from Spears and Munson.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay. I think Classy's going to drive from Ohio just to get there now at this point.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, hey,
I'm actually going to be there next month. I was going to stop in and say hello to you guys.
I would
that's
love
awesome. That's awesome.
And just for everybody to know, Stacy Spears was the chief technology officer at Portrait Display, CalMan.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And that was several years ago. He left and became the chief technology officer for Red cameras. Red cameras is what some photographers use to shoot their 4K movies, HDR movies in, and he is their chief technology officer. He's one of the brightest video scientists in the world. So,
now, this leads to the obvious follow-up question. How do they get on your mailing list to be notified? Because 50 is not a lot.
No.
Is there a way? I mean, do you have a date? Like on this date, get ready at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
How do they get on your mailing list, basically?
We're going to open up this list. By the way, so many things I'm breaking here today.
I know. I love it.
We're going to be opening up that list for people to sign up to be attend in person on, I think it's August 1st. So it's not that far away. And it's to the first 50. There's no priority to anything. It's the first 50 from the public. And then we're going to have a minimum of 10 judges and about 4 or 5 special VIP presenters. I have some other very special guests coming this year.
And maybe leading up to that, email me and I'll put it on my community page just so that
you have no choice. You have to come this year.
Oh, I'm coming. That's for sure. No doubt about it. Now I know when it is. Yeah. No,
and you'd be an honored guest. I'd have a red carpet rolled out for you.
I'll be rubbing elbows with Stacey Spears and do my selfies.
That's right.
And don't forget to bring your glasses. I want to see what they look like.
Hey, not only am I vaccinated, I'm going to have gloves too. So
okay, good.
With my 8K camera. Hey, Rachel Dempster, thank you for the super chat.
Also, please.
Yes, absolutely.
Because I have a special red carpet for you, Classy.
Oh,
wait, what was the date? I missed it earlier.
No, you better
September 12th.
All right, I'll put that on calendar and try to get it.
You bet.
Rachel Dempster, thank you for the super chat. For Robert, is it okay for me to update to firmware 3.11.21 without messing your calibration on my C1?
Yes.
It has something to do with the sound, not sure. So what are your thoughts on updating the C1 firmware to this version?
That firmware update has no effect on the calibration, as do 99.99% of updates. But you never know for sure, so it's good to always ask.
Yeah, we always talk to LG in the beginning of the year. We know what's broken.
Right.
They usually tell us ahead of time. So
that's correct.
It really only happened to us once. And it really wasn't that big of a deal, but it does theoretically happen once in a while.
Right. That makes sense. And this is one of our regulars. Thank you, Tech Med. I don't know if he's still in Greece. He's been in Crete for like the last few weeks. Coming on, I'm having a margarita in Crete. Saying hello. He has the Samsung QN900A 85-inch and can't stop raving about it. He just loves that. He's in Germany, so he's like, best TV he's ever had. And here we go. Robert John, love you guys for this shootout. Will it be a bear, or will he be able to hear it on live stream? Would love to watch. Yes. Are we going to have a live stream function there?
Yes. We're going to be live streaming it. It'll be moderated for Q&A as well. So questions that the moderator feels are respectfully worthy will be brought up to the panel of experts, as well as our presenters, Stacey Spears, and all the other special presenters will have.
That's great.
Yes.
And Eric Bell, thank you for the super chat. Size versus quality. C1 83-inch versus A90J 77-inch. Ooh, I don't think there's a 77-inch A90J, but I can bring myself to purchase the 83-inch A90J, which is much higher than that C1 size. So maybe he meant the A80J. So let's compare. C1 83-inch versus A80J 77-inch. Go for it, Robert.
I'm sorry to ask to go first, but in this case, unquestionably, I would take an 83-inch C1 if it was my choice, because you'll have a moderate advantage with an A80J in picture quality, but you'll have a significant advantage in the larger screen size. As long as you're 6 feet away or further, you want the 83-inch.
Mm-hmm. And can I just jump in real quick before we get to John? Only because up to this point, it's been a Sony love fest. We're talking, how much we love the XR chip, the A80J. But then John said, but then this is such minute differences that the minute you go up 6 inches, go for the bigger TV. So John, what are your thoughts? Because I know we're just loving the XR chip, the A80J. And then suddenly,
I couldn't wait. When I go in the store, it's like an obstacle course. I'm going to call OSHA every time I walk in. There's first thing and like stumbling across stuff. I mean, it's stuff back to the ceiling. But anyway, when these 83 inches were supposed to come in, I thought there'd be like a big monstrosity of a box, right? And that they'd be like really unwieldy. So we get all these sets in, and Robert takes one of these out, and man, the first time we saw it, it was like, holy cow, this is so big, right? And then eventually, as you go back to the store and even though it's so big, you start getting used to the size. Just like you get used to the 77s, you get used to the 83. So, screen size, I think the larger screen size is always beneficial. There's no question. But then again, it really depends on, your environment, right? If you have the room for it, right? You just can't put an 80. You can, but I don't know who would put an 83-inch in their bedroom, for instance, So that's my opinion. Robin has them probably.
And Classy, what are your thoughts on this one?
All right, so I do want to point out on AVS, there's someone with an 83C1, and he's measuring at D65, and it's like spot on. So I know different sizes come with different white points. So have you seen if the 83C1 is more D65 than Judd?
Well, we haven't seen the 83-inch C1 yet, so I'll let you know.
All right, yeah, let me know. But you know, because right now I'm saying, like, if going with LG, I definitely recommend the calibration, get the near black raise a little bit.
Yes.
Get some of that extra orange out of the picture.
Yes.
Whereas with the Sony, I don't think it needs the calibration as much. But definitely for size, like I went from 85 down to 77. I just missed that immersion. And, you know, I like to say that a 77, 75 is, you know, your big TV experience, but the 83, 85 is like the small home theater experience.
Yes.
And I think this kind of goes to the theme that if you're regular viewers of our live stream or any of our reviews, when it comes to size differences and the TVs are close, we always go with the bigger size. And that tells you how close the OLEDs are ultimately. As much as we all love the A90J, you add 6 inches and then, hey, you know what, get the C1. So that should tell you guys something.
And one more quick thing.
Yeah.
Think about the screen size being 6 inches more. It's diagonally measured. So it's taller and wider. Square inches, it's a lot more image area. And as John pointed out, to drive that point home, you very quickly get accustomed to the larger screen size. If you just Google screen size to viewing distance, they recommend 1.5 times the height. It's 42 inches tall for an 83-inch. You're supposed to view that at 6 feet away, an 83-inch TV. And
that
that's
makes sense.
what everybody recommends.
And now this question I wanted to bring up because it was something that actually I was excited to have you guys on to address this specifically. I spoke to Classy before about this. So Vincent Ho, one of the reviewers out there, they noticed that the A90J near blacks, he had a specific observation, and not being as technical as you guys, I wanted to hear your explanation, maybe the differences, or was it a specific content? So let's go with Classy and we'll work our way around. Classy, what are your thoughts on Vincent's observation of the A90J having near black problems?
All right, well, John and I were actually on the phone earlier talking about this, and it does seem like the A90J has slightly more raised blacks than the A80J. So I had the A80J, and they were just a touch too bright. But I found that if you set the black level to 49, then calibrate with the 20 point to raise everything else, it completely eliminates that problem. I haven't touched an A90J yet, but I don't see why that wouldn't work on it as well.
Yeah, we would. Again, I agree. You know, I don't always lower the black level. I mean, it depends. You know, I see so many sets, and the only thing I can say is that I haven't seen what Vincent saw on any of the sets that we had. Not that it can't happen. It's just that it was not to that extreme. You know, there's no question. Immediately when we first saw the Sonys, we knew right away it was coming out of black faster than the LGs, for instance, right? And maybe coming out of black a little too fast. But you know, it's like anything else. If you get the exact scene on a certain piece of content that you could show it and go, wow, look at this, right? But you know, in reality, I guess 99% or 98% of the rest of the content, it's probably just fine. You know, I mean, Sony has to know. In fact, they do know about it, right, Robert? They speak about that, right?
Yes.
I mean, they know what they're doing. I mean, they just feel this is what is correct, whether we believe it's correct or not, or is kind of moot. You know, Sony spends a lot of time with focus groups, just like LG and others, and at the end of the day, it's whatever their marketing people feel is the right picture quality that represents Sony. You know, they're going to make it that way. Whether us technical people say, well, it's fast or slow, they feel it's right.
I want to just add to that, because I have discussed this in great detail, again, with product development and engineering. And Sony does it for a reason. And first of all, we're talking about from 0 to 4% stimulus level. Very, 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 very dark shadow details. Not the rest of coming out of black, the very, very darkest shadow details. The reason that Sony selected this method, which very slightly comes out of black a little bit faster than we'd like, and again, we're nitpicking, is because their method is different than LG. LG will dither the near black. They'll dither, turning the pixels on and off, because they can't reproduce near black. Sony says, I'm not going to flicker and dither. Sony engineers and their broadcast and the Hollywood partners that own the company have decided to put it's bit starved. It doesn't have enough bits. So they put more processing power on the near black, and it naturally raises it a little bit too fast. But it gives you more detail in the near black. And it is likely, by most professional consideration, more accurate way than just crushing 4%, turning it to pure black. So it's a different opinion. It's a different way of doing it. But boy, are we getting down to nitpicking stuff here.
Well, let's talk about nitpicking. This question is nitpicking right here, and it's a great one. Andy Kilsu, thank you for the super chat. Thoughts on Keep It Classy's new video suggesting, maybe that's why he was talking to John, D65 calibration on the A90J or A80J messes with Dolby Vision colors. Maybe keep it out of the box. Don't touch it. Okay, let's leave this last for Keep It Classy because it's your video. We'll start with Robert and then John. What are your thoughts on this comment?
Well, the other two will comment better, but it's not keep it out of the box necessarily. It's calibrate using the offset that Sony recommends because they know what they're doing again. So if you want the best Dolby Vision colors and you're okay with paying for a calibration, just don't redo the white point to D65. Follow Sony. They know what they're doing. Leave the white point where they set it and then calibrate for Dolby Vision.
Yeah, so we were talking about this before, and you know, it is what it is, right? I mean, that's all you really could say. I mean, you can't make it. It's hard to change it. I mean, the bottom line is, we were talking to Classy before. He did some experiments, and at the end of the day, the Sony is not using the white point in the service menu to calculate the offsets in Dolby Vision. It's using math based on the fact that it's set at judge, right? Classy, because you said it at D65, and in the offsets, right? The offsets on the Dolby Vision were still wrong, right? Which it should have been correct, just like the HDR. So obviously they're doing a different calculation that you can't really change. Now you can go ahead and calibrate Dolby Vision separately, you know, to a different color space, like warm or whatever. But the only risk that you run when you do that is, you know, Sony doesn't support anything but SDR calibration. So what they're telling you when they say that is that they can make any change they want without having to worry that they're going to mess up your calibration, right? So they can do anything they want change-wise. So, you know, if you have your own TV and you calibrate yourself and you want to change the white point and do all kinds of fancy calibrations to get everything the way you want it, go ahead. If you feel that you like the judge offset and it's fine, then you go ahead and let the Sony do its thing and calibrate it as Sony recommends, and you won't have to worry about these things. You know, you gotta remember one thing. Everybody sees color differently, right? That's why some people like one white point versus another. As per my impromptu experiment, what we're seeing is obviously that the Sony sitting there, coming from the factory, looks like very close to D65 visually when compared to another set at D65. Whether it's the filter, I don't know. I just really don't know. You know, what's making it look like that. But the bottom line is, comparatively, it's pretty much the same. You know, and we're splitting hairs again. Again, there's going to be lots of calibrators that feel one way or another, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think everybody's right, but it's their opinion, right? You know what I'm saying? There's nothing. You know, I'm not. You know, Sony's doing what they're doing, and they're not. It's not without any thought, right? I mean, you think about it, right? Sony's in the motion picture business, right? So they're the experts. And I always tell Rob, and I said, well, look, if you can't trust what they're doing at the factory, and as far as the white point is concerned, why trust anything else they're doing on the TV? Think about it, right? I mean, what about all the other decisions they made? If you don't like that decision and you think they don't know what they're doing, right? What about all the other stuff, right? Is that wrong too? You know what I'm trying to say? I mean, you have to just say, okay, fine, this is the way they want it. We trust them. Looks good. Move on, you know.
And before we get to you, Classy, I was just going to jump in that comment really quick because John brings up a really great point about trusting Sony. And this is something that other reviewers have mentioned. And I'll say AV Forums recently had their A90J review, and they mentioned the same thing. They go, now, this is great. We love this TV. Whether or not it is consistent with the creator's intent, their conclusion is, who cares? We love this TV. They did a great job with whatever they did. And so let's bring this question up again one more time. D65 A90J misses the Dolby Vision colors. Keep it out of the box. And this was Classy's thing. So Classy, you're up. What is your conclusion based on that?
Right. So in my video, I had both. I had the D65 and the out of the box white point. And another thing to remember is, D65 is like the standard that's used, but it doesn't perceptually look the same on different panel types. That's why we have alternate white points. That's why perceptual matching is a thing. And it's why I'm trying to get my hands on a, decent plasma, for cheap or whatever, so I can do it myself. But I wanted to showcase how different they looked versus out of the box versus what the standard, D65 calibration would look like. But I kind of suspected, and from what I've seen in the comments, most people just want to keep that default, color point because it also is brighter. It gets a little bit cooler, just a touch cooler, but it also allows more brightness. And the way that I did it too was I calibrated the Expert 1 for D65, but I used warm for Dolby Vision. So, that would basically undo that D65 calibration on the warm color temperature, so you can still use that for Dolby Vision. But my recommendation was, if you want that D65 look, then just spend the minute when you're going to watch Dolby Vision to set it back, and then you don't have to worry.
There you go. That's an option. Thanks for that, Cassie. Look, the can of worms you opened up. So thank you for the super chat, Cyber GT. Another question. He's one of our European fans. What is the best TV for gaming in Europe in 2021? Standard LG One, the JZ1500 with a new Gaming Extreme, features input lag to only 2.5 milliseconds for 60 hertz signals, the Philips 806, 865 full, 48 gigabits per second with Premium Pro. So I'll start real quick. Sadly, we don't get any of these TVs, but if you're just looking at the specs, you have to be careful that implementation, execution is everything. So until we get actual people with these TVs in Europe testing game mode, we know that LG works. So let's put LG aside. It works well on almost everything that you've mentioned. The question is whether Panasonic can implement their VRR as well. And then Philips, I have no idea. And I think ultimately 48 gigabits per second isn't a big deal unless you're looking at a certain bit rate, very specific to PC gaming. But those are my thoughts. Robert, John, Classy, what do you think about gaming with European TVs?
I don't know anything about the Panasonics, but I'm pretty sure LG got the update for Dolby Vision 120. At least that check mark is checking on the Xbox now, so I'm about to test that when we're done. That's
something. I don't think any of those other TVs are getting that yet or anytime soon, because 4K 120 Dolby Vision, I don't think people realize how difficult that is. I mean, 4K 120, anything is hard. You add VRR, Dolby Vision to it. That's a lot of processing. I have to say, I'm impressed that LG got it working, after 30 days of that announcement, less. So, Robert, any thoughts on the LG Dolby Vision gaming? I know you're always in tune with the engineers out there.
Yeah, I'm sorry that I don't know the answer to this one as well. One of the things we're going to do at the TV Shootout is test gaming input lag time on all the TVs. So we'll have those definitive answers from our testing. And this year we have 2 different input lag testers. So I guess I'll know more in early September. But right now, I'm sorry, I just don't know the answers.
Yeah,
Makes sense.
Can I ask you a question about that? What kind of lag testers? Because I've actually been talking with the guy that does the Raspberry Pi lag tester about how to measure at 4K 120. Because so far I've only seen the Arting's, custom made one being the only one that does that. Yeah.
Well, I don't think that Leo Bonda is going to do it. It won't do it.
Yeah.
We are working with AV Pro. Do you know that company?
Mm-mm.
Oh, they're fantastic. So they're developing one for us to use at the TV Shootout. That'll do 4K 120. So I should be able to test 4K 120, 8K 60 as well. Yeah. So that's we're expecting to be able to accurately compare and test input lag at 4K 120.
Thank you for that. And Josiah, thank you for the super chat. Refuses to buy any Sony until the X95H gets the promised VRR update. Fair enough. Is the LG G1 my only high-end OLED option with improved brightness? And so I'll start real quick, which is when we talk Sony, it's almost always movie quality, streaming quality, image quality content. And when we hear anyone who gaming is even slightly important, we just point them to LG. Why go through the grief? It's obvious that Sony, they have their expertise. Now, is LG G1 my only high-end OLED option with improved brightness? I think you could have the QNED out there. Robert, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, that's a good point. If you want to get a mini LED, and I'm very, very optimistic on the QNED, and that'll have very fast, it'll have 6 milliseconds or faster input lag time. It'll have not only VRR and AAM, but it'll have Higgy and all the other gaming dream things. So that's a very good alternative. Other than that, a G1 is a good choice as well. But very respectfully to the very fine Sony, they are not the gamer's choice.
Mm-mm. Yeah. And John or Classy, anything to add to his gaming question? Classy?
I had the 900H, and honestly, the VRR ALLM isn't the troublesome issue with that TV. It's the half resolution at 120 hertz.
Yeah.
That's what made me mad and get rid of the TV. And leaning towards gaming, I'm probably going to end up with the 77 G1.
Yeah, and that's what we talked about. You're a gamer, that's the choice. Or maybe this year the QNED. Hey, David, thank you for the super chat. Never had an OLED before. Looking at the 77-inch 880J, but the image retention worries me. Yeah, that's something we mention often. Also thinking about the X95J or possibly waiting for the LG QNED for SDR and some HDR and PS4, PS5 gaming. Thoughts? Classy, start with you, Mr. Gamer.
Yep. I mean, that's pretty much what I just went through was with the dimming, the image retention. That's why I decided to return the A80J and keep looking. Both the X95J and QNED are on my list to look at before I decide. I honestly didn't expect to like the QN90A that much, but I'm kind of liking it. So I may end up going that. I just don't know if I want to give up Dolby Vision.
That's it. That's the pain, the Dolby Vision. Okay. And Robert, John, anything to add?
Nope.
I'm cautiously optimistic, if not even more optimistic, on the new LG QNED as the gamer's choice. I think that's a winner. But we will soon see.
We'll soon see.
Yeah, I'm excited about that possibility as well. So hopefully, wait, David. I know we've asked you to wait before, but if QNED ends up being the answer, we don't want you to have FOMO. Andrew Toole, thank you for the super chat. Is Sony aware of their terrible panning motion on the current models and they are planning any patches to fix it? So I'm not aware of terrible panning motion, but let me answer this real quick because I think on the Sony, you really have to know what settings to put it at. So for panning motion, we saw on Army of the Dead, you have to have Cinemotion or motion flow on high and high on basically everything on high. It's smooth, but then you have soap opera, but all the other TVs have the same issue for Army of the Dead. So I'm not aware of issues on the panning motion that's unique to Sony, and the other ones don't have something similar. What are your thoughts? We'll start with Robert. We'll go down.
Well, there are, as you were pointing out, 3 different settings that'll help you with motion resolution. Panning motion is the most difficult to fix because sometimes the cameraman will pan faster than the frame rate. So it's in the content, and there's nothing you can do about it. Particularly panning is a problem.
Right.
But there are 3 settings, and you can work with those settings to find the perfect match that'll improve motion resolution. Sony, in my opinion, is not worse than any other TV, but maybe your other guests might know better than me.
It's pretty much the same. I mean, it just depends on the content.
Yes, it does.
Yep. Yeah, for me with the Sony and the LG OLEDs, I kind of rate the motion the same. Like the LG has more definement in that their settings go 1 through 10.
Yes.
But I'm still having a harder time finding the setting that fits what I want versus on the Sony. I just went smoothness min, clearness 1, Cinemotion low, and left it, and everything was perfect.
That's right.
But everyone's different. I see people who say 1 on the smoothness isn't enough smoothness, but then 2 is too much SOE. So I think you got to just put eyes on both and see what you like.
Right.
And well, now we're talking motion. Hey, Tech, another frequent guest. 4K 120 is just 60 hertz halved. Usually, right? I don't know. I mean, it's odd. Maybe it is, but is that how it works? Classy, can you answer
Talking
that?
about the input lag, and rounding in a way, yeah, but not exactly always like that either. Right. Like the LGs with that boost mode, it's supposed to, simulate 120 hertz to bring the 60 hertz input lag down on the LG, but at 120 it's still lower, so it just depends.
And having go ahead, Robert, please.
Okay. I was just going to mention that hertz is kind of you can relate to that as frames per second.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sometimes people, they don't know. And this question from Robert Wadi for Robert Zone, I think it's going to be you who could answer this since you have your engineers on the phone. Dolby Vision 4K 120, they're talking about it being for the C1, G1. Any talk about for the C10, G10? I mean, people are assuming it's not, but are they working on that? Any insight?
I'm tough with these manufacturers to please provide firmware updates like they do on the current models. And some companies are better at supporting than others. And in some cases, it's because of the limitation of the older processors can't handle the upgrades that they're doing for the newer models. So it's not always the brand's fault. But I'm the police guy for this. And I stand tough with these companies because I want them to support previous models. I think they owe it to their customers, and they'll build a better reputation for themselves by doing that. So I am optimistic that we will see 4K 120. I don't see anything in the new Gen 4 processor that's not in the Gen 3 processor that will prohibit them from giving us 4K 120. So it's on my hot list, that exact question, and I will stay on that. So I'm the Ralph Nader of the TV.
Yes, you are. Well, in late August, when we have you back on again, let's see what that update brings to the table.
Yes.
And since I still have you, Spillage Village has a question that only you and John, I know what John's going to do, but let's see what happens. If you had to guess, is the Z9J going to be better than the QN900A for 8K? Less blooming gaming features. Okay, Robert, you start. What you're closer to this than all of us.
This is a very good question, and we'll know when we get the Z9J. So the QN900A is a mini LED, so it has more local dimming zones. So that's to its advantage in specifications. We'll see if it translates to the real world usage when we have a Z9J. Now the Z9J is significantly brighter. It has better video processor, but I won't know until we really can put them next to each other and get all our test patterns, get our signal generators, get content running on them. I'm going to put them butt up against each other and challenge them to compete. So, and guess we'll know in early August.
My guess is that the Z9J will probably be better. And the only reason why I say that is because usually whichever manufacturer's set comes out after, they're looking at they do before them, right? Yes. And they're going to do whatever they can to do their tweaks and firmware changes to try and make it as equal or better than what's out there. So even though they're late in coming out, there is an advantage to that.
Yes,
that makes sense.
One more quick thing to go back to that.
Yes.
QN90A has an advantage, 900A, of being a mini LED. So it does have should have less blooming. But interestingly, the 4K QN90A has less blooming than the 900A. I don't know exactly why that is, but it is the truth.
And that's a good point. Maybe the QNED 90 may end up being the dark room. I mean, assuming it's a similar issue.
Yes.
Could be 8K. I like to blame it on 8K. So.
Very good. Thank you.
Hey, Mohammed, thank you for the super chat. How is the picture quality of the Panasonic JZ2000 and how it's compared to the A90J in terms of HDR picture quality? Mohammed, I apologize. We are in the US. We don't get Panasonic, but Robert is working hard to bring it to the USA. I suggest you look at the comparisons that I know Flat Panels HD will be doing, but if you use their comparison with last year's HZ2000, right, it looks like the Panasonic will be brighter peak to peak, but what we've been saying is the A90J, it's not about the peak brightness, it's the color volume, the preservation of color at the highest brightness where it's not washed out. And it's up there, right? You're at the last 10% of brightness. On the Sony, all the colors there, whereas on the Panasonic, even last year, there was a bit of clipping of color. So that's something to think about, but sheer brightness, the Sony's not going to be brighter. I mean, the Panasonic last year's already hit close to 1,000 nits. We know Sony won't do that in accurate movie mode, but the Panasonic did. And this year it will, again, do the same thing. So hopefully we'll get it and confirm what we expect. Thanks, Corey, for the super chat. Brian just got the 77-inch A80J. I wonder if he got it at Value Electronics. We're talking about Whisper Status, another common guest. He's live now also. Yeah, I know he's in love with that. He texted me earlier, like, yes, I got it. So that's something that we're going to hear a lot of raving about. And, so this brings up a good point, Robert and John. You mentioned the A90J has a lot of low incidence of uniformity panel lottery issues. How about the A80J? We know it's not a master series, but are you seeing similar levels of quality out of the A80J in terms of panel lottery and QC?
It's very consistent. We haven't really had any problems yet. So I'm pretty happy with the quality control that's coming out of Sony. Even though there are some pretty bad panels that some people are getting, but especially overseas, you got to remember that a lot of these panels are made at different. I mean, the sets and panels are made at different factories, right? So every time I see a panel that looks really horrible, I say to myself, in all my years of calibrating, I've never ever seen anything, not even close. Then I go look, and there's someplace wherever, I don't know, someplace not in the United States. So I'm wondering if a lot of this has to do with where the sets actually, manufactured, where the components are coming from. I really don't know.
Right.
But so far, we, knock on wood, we've been pretty good. Consistency.
Great. And Class, you've gone through a bunch of TVs this year. What has been your small experience, your sample size of DSE and the like?
Well, I mean, not just from mine, but being on the forums and seeing all those threads. In my opinion, my theory is because LG Display makes the panels, I don't think LG Electronics tests them. I think they just trust them. I think Sony has that liability, so they're going to test them. And that's why the LGs out of the box are so dark and they need that break-in period, whereas the Sonys don't need the break-in period as much, it seems. So I think Sony just does a second check and LG just trusts LG Display.
You know what? That's as good a reason as any. I agree. Hey, thank you. Yeah, I think Sony should hire Classy as their PR guy. Hey, Cyber GT, thank you for the super chat. Have a challenge for FOMO and the rest of the team, including people not on live stream. What best TV anywhere in the world for under 600, including sales? You have 2 weeks to come back with your results. Okay, I'm thinking at that price range, I can already predict it's either going to be a TCL or a Hisense, but we'll see. That's my guess. But yes, on our Prime Day special live stream, we'll be checking out all the best deals at all prices. We're not just talking the high end, $600, whatever. And like Robert said at the beginning, he's going to have his special prices on that day. So if you guys find anything awesome, but you'd like a little QC, tender loving care, and calibration, reach out to Robert. So he'll give you the best of both worlds, right? His QC service and calibration, plus the price that you found online. Give him a call, assuming he has any left. Robert, I know that it's outrageous. You barely have any inventory, but just in case, if it's an older model, you never know. So thank you for that question. All right. So back to the panel lottery. What about the LG panel lottery? So Classic, as you were saying, it just appears LG's panel lottery. It's just a little bit less, but forget the OLEDs. What about the non-OLED TVs? So we're talking Sony, Samsung, and LG non-OLED TVs. I haven't had too much experience with them because I get everything QC'd by you, Robert, so it just feels like everything is great. So you go through more of these than anyone else I know. Robert, what are your opinions about the DSC panel lottery non-OLED TVs among the various brands that you carry?
If we're only talking about dirty screen effect,
yes,
it's more plagued on LCD than it is on OLED emissive displays. And I haven't seen enough to really say for sure, but I would say we need to QC the Samsungs a little bit more carefully for DSC than the others. The X90J has been very clean. This Sony X90J has been very clean. We've done quite a few of those.
And I think I want to emphasize this point. This is one where normally people say you get, you go up the tier and you get more of that flagship quality. And normally that's the case. But recently, and I'm not attacking Samsung, but they've been having their consistent panel issues across their entire line from the top down to the bottom, whereas Sony appears to be consistent from the top
yes,
to the X90J, even to include the X95J, which I think maybe this is what Classy is saying, is maybe Sony puts a little bit more effort in rejecting the panel at the OEM level than Samsung. But that's what I've been seeing among my viewers and among the forums. Classy, you're out in the forums. What's your experience with the different brands? Panasonic, I'm sorry, it's Panasonic, Samsung, Sony, and LG non-OLED, the LCD TVs.
All right. Again, typically I would say Sony seems to have the best QC. Yes. Although I will say the odd one's out. You know, like I said before, I had an X90J that was absolutely awful. There was so much dirt and dust in the screen, it had to go back. The QN90A that I have just looks like there's splotches all over the screen. I don't know if you've seen that on Samsung's, but there's just like at that mid-gray level, you just see splotches everywhere. Like they just took a gray paintball gun and just shot the screen. The other thing I do want to point out on the OLED side, if you get an LG, don't look for uniformity problems in the first 50 hours. Give it some hours, run the pixel refresher, then look.
That's right.
I mean, it's going to look awful when you first get it.
Agreed. And here we go, Brian, Whisper Status. He wants to say his 80J is very clean from Robert. So share with us your QC process, because a lot of people ask me about that. The truth is, I don't know what you really do. I get the TVs, and you do a great job. But what does QC actually entail before you then hand it over to John to fiddle around with to make it look great?
Well, we look for screen uniformity issues. We look for tinting issues. We look for dead or stuck pixels. Any of those issues would not pass our QC process. And we look for any other defect in the television in general as well. We've also occasionally rejected panels if they didn't reach, a peak lumens level that we expect. But screen uniformity is the biggest issue, followed by tinting and dead or stuck pixels. That is primarily, but any defect in the TV as well. And, thank you, Brian at Whisper Status. I'm a little optimistic in saying this, but I don't think Sony would dare send us bad panels, because they know that we are nitpickers, and we send back anything that we don't like. So,
what's really interesting when Robert says that, sometimes we tend to think that there's like a special shipment comes, right? Because you go on AVS and it's like panel after panel after panel that's horrible, and we're looking around, looking for it, right? And we don't see it, right? So I have a funny feeling. No, I don't want to say. Anyway, there's probably another retailer that gets the bad ones to begin with.
Let's stay away from them.
Yeah,
it's almost like that. I mean, it's the craziest thing.
That makes complete sense, and I think that's one of the well, we'll just talk about retailing in general, because you're in the business, and a lot of our viewers, they're in that transition where Best Buys are closing, Costco has no service. You just pick up what you see and you're done with it, and then you trust that the 1-year return, if it sucks, you kind of swap in. How has things changed for you as a retailer, Robert, in the last maybe 8 months? And I think the global malware issue, human malware, has really made a change in buying habits. What is your new normal when selling TVs? Like, what are you relying on? Is it still the same process? Because with Best Buy and others moving online exclusively, you're not online. How are you competing?
Well, we are online. We have a very large e-commerce business. So we have shopping cart online, and we sell a good volume of our business is nationwide online. We're authorized to sell and deliver nationwide. And very interesting, LG has 7 dealers in the United States that are at this level. And please forgive the name, I didn't make it up. We're called prestigious pinnacle dealers. And we're one of 7 prestigious pinnacle dealers. Some of the advantages are, if you buy a TV from a prestigious pinnacle dealer like Value Electronics, within the first 90 days, if your TV develops a defect, you get a new TV swapped. All the shipping is covered by our company on both the return and the new TV. So within the first 90 days, you don't deal with the repair. You get an immediate advanced replacement. Likewise, within the first year of the factory warranty, if you develop a defect, LG doesn't satisfactorily take care of it, within 5 days of your calling in the claim, we give you a brand new swapped, brand new TV, not a refurb. So there's a lot of benefits to this prestigious dealer program that we are one of 7 of selected. Same thing with Sony. We're a diamond key dealer. and the limitations are a little shorter, we have 2 weeks to replace the TV if it has a manufacturer's defect. And same thing with Samsung. We have 90 days like LG as well. So there's a lot of benefits with doing business with us and any of these other prestigious dealers in giving you superior customer support. So the issues of worrying about getting a bad panel is all on the manufacturers delivering a good panel to you. So all that's good. And then our QC process and our excellent proper break-in to stabilize it so it won't drift, and then our superior calibration service ensures you that you'll get the best picture quality and that you'll get a better than average panel as well.
So speaking of QC, Earthy Grayus asks, any X90J sound issues while you're going through QC? So we talked about image quality. Do you test for sound QC, meaning eARC is working, or how is your audio QC process, if there is any at all?
I have to admit, we fail a little bit on that score. So even though I don't like to give the answers that you don't like to hear, or I don't like
Fair enough.
I'll always say whatever the truth is. I'm sorry, we're so focused on video.
No, hey, it is because audio, and then where are you going to test it on, right? Are you going to, which sound bar? Because some might work, some might not. So yeah, it is tough. And image, you see it right away.
Yes.
B Rooms has a question, and he had a super chat. Sorry, B, missed that. Can't decide. 77-inch A80J, C1, C10, or wait for the 75-inch X95J, 75-inch X90J versus the X950H antenna, so over the air, TV apps, and Plex. Sound is already taken care of. Okay, so TV apps, you understand TV apps. I'll start real quick. It looks like I would go with the OLEDs because that's in his list. But generally the TV apps, I don't like how any of the TVs do their apps because it's not very consistent, or they may not have all the apps you want. So normally plug in something, but I'd say go with a 77-inch C10 because I don't see gaming. So he doesn't need the latest for gaming. That gets him the best bang for the buck. And we'll go around starting with you, Robert. What's your take?
Well, thank you. I would go with a C1, or I would go with one of the other TV choices, except not the X950H. The reason really is that you mentioned use an antenna. I'm a very big proponent of ATSC 3.0 next-gen television. I understand it very well. I worked in TV broadcast engineering. I was part of the development, moving from analog TV to ATSC 1.0 when we first developed digital television that was HD back in 1996. I was in the inner circle of the development of that. I understand next-gen ATSC 3.0 technically very well, and it's every 30 years we get a new TV system. This is it, and you're going to want it. It's on the A80J. It's on the C1. It is not on a CX. It's on an X95J. It's on an X90J. It is not on an X950H. So if you have an over-the-air antenna, you want one of those other choices that we recommended here. You could get an external box to make ATSC 3.0 upgrade on any of the older televisions, but I like the built-in product. And I would probably pick an A80J or a C1.
That makes sense. And go ahead, John, you're up.
Robert, can you use an indoor antenna for that?
Yes, you can, as long as it's in a window that faces towards the transmission tower.
Okay.
Yes. And you're going to want to have this.
I know.
We can do a good hour or so on the next-gen television, and I would love to do that. I'm a big proponent of it. I understand it and can explain it. Easy to understand. It's very, very technical, and I can give you all the details and very easy to understand. It is a fantastic advancement, and everybody's going to want to have that. It's lossless, uncompressed audio and video. You'll have 4K HDR, as good as a Blu-ray disc, if not better. You're going to have advanced audio formats. You're going to have dual screen. You're going to have interactive television.
Now after all of that, I'm going to change my answer. The A80J. Well, since you put it on the list, right? Why save money? I'm going to have FOMO not having ATSC 3.0.
Absolutely.
So I'm changing my answer to the A80J. So
Everybody
Robert
needs to get the old antennas back up in the attic from the 1950s.
John, what would be your preference, John, among the things that he's listed?
Yeah, I mean, I favor the A90J. I just think it's superior in so many different ways, but again, if you have less, if you have less of a budget, I like either C1 or the A80 is fine.
And classy.
Definitely would say the A80J, and I thought the C1 didn't have the 3.0, but the G1 did.
Right.
That's right.
And then also because he mentions Plex, I'd just say I hope you have an NVIDIA Shield for Plex, and then you'll get the uncompressed audio with it. And that AI enhancement, I'm telling you, works so well with the XR processor on the A80J.
And with the antenna. Right, with the antenna, can you imagine the upscaling? So yeah, Classy will walk you through it. Check out his channel.
Thank you for correcting me. C1 and CX do not have.
Yeah, I forgot.
Right. Thank you, Classy. Sorry about that.
No
So
problem.
TechMed Rainer, here's our buddy with his beautiful QNED, and I'm laughing out of joy because you lucked out. He has an 85-inch perfect, and we know how hard it is to get one that big to perfect. So he's out in Germany, and he is their #1 fan. So thank you, TechMed Rainer Richter, for that super chat. And okay, so just a quick announcement. We're going to let everyone go home in the next 5 minutes. So if you have any last-minute questions, let me know. It's been wonderful having Val Electronics team on answering your questions. Thank you, Robert Buati, again, for the super chat. With last year's C10, G10 that have the Alpha 9 Gen 3 processor, how much more powerful are they compared to the C1 G1 9 processor? So this is is it as dramatic as Sony going from the X1 to the XR? So can you tell us the change or the improvement from the C10 series to the C1 series?
I know a little bit about that. So what they did is they mostly improved the motion resolution. That's the biggest enhancement on the Gen 4 processor. You have more settings, and you naturally have better motion resolution. It's moderately better on up conversion of low resolution cable by a small amount. I would say motion resolution was the biggest enhancement. Also, it has more memory. It has a larger memory, so they can really do a better job with the AR. They store more information about different flesh tones, what they should look like, what a blue sky looks like. It has more memory. So the AI is a little bit more aggressive this year as well.
Okay, that makes sense. John, you've seen as many of these TVs as the next great calibrator. What are your thoughts on the improvement in the LG processing?
Yeah, I really can't add any more than Robert has. He's spoken to the engineers. But basically, it's an incremental improvement versus revolutionary improvement that we're seeing on the Sony, which is fine. I mean, if you look at it this way, LG had a serious problem with motion for many, many years, right? True. And they have done a really great job getting that perfected, to a really good point. So we don't even really talk about motion on the LG too much, but they used to take a beating all the time, right? So that's really, really good for them. And they're doing, an excellent job. The set is a premium TV. It is very good. It's just, I think Sony's beating them out with the overall picture processing this year. That's just my general high-level opinion.
And now this is another question for many people considering the different sizes. A80J, they got the matte finish, and then the larger one doesn't. I mean, are you guys seeing any qualitative differences?
What's the matte finish? I mean, we haven't seen any matte finish.
I haven't seen it. Yeah.
Classy, can you?
It's not matte. They said semi-gloss. Like Arting's review, it's semi-gloss on the 55 and 65, whereas the 77 is your typical full gloss. But it's such a minor difference. Like I saw it in Costco. If they're not side by side, I don't think you're going to see any difference, and it doesn't affect the picture.
I do want to add a drop to that, please. So the reason that they make these screens glossy is because if you look at a photograph and you look at a glossy print versus a matte finish paper, you'll see that it's sharper looking. Same thing happens with video as well. If you put a glossy finish at the end of the panel, it makes the image sharper. It also makes the blacks richer and deeper. It lowers the blacks. The disadvantage would be glare and reflection. That's the disadvantage. But it does give you a sharper image and deeper blacks, a glossy finish.
And here's an important question for Robert. I know you sell over the U.S. Are you able to send to Canadian customers?
I'm very sorry to say no. And we love our Northern Canadian brothers. And I support them and help them all the time as a courtesy. So I am always happy to do that. but I can't make a transaction. Now, unbeknownst to me, we've had several people that have imported where we've shipped and they've brought it across the border themselves. So that has happened. But you are better off buying in your country of origin because you'll get your full warranty. So it's always best to be advised to buy from the country.
Right. And well, we were just talking about the incremental improvement. So here's a text question. QNED uses the Alpha 7 Gen 4 on the 4K. Will that hold back the QNED and the 4K considering the OLEDs and the 8K has it?
I'll take that one too. I'm sorry. All right, did you finish? I'm sorry.
No, that's it. That's it. I wouldn't know what to say. So Robert, please.
So the QNED 90 and 99 will be Gen 4, Alpha 9 Gen 4. When you step down lower in the series, you're going to get the Gen 7.
So the nano cells are the Gen 7.
That's right. They do make lower end nano cells or mini LED. There is a fairly nice upgrade to the Alpha 9 processor. So they want to differentiate these models so you have a reason to step up. You get more local dimming zones, you get more LEDs, you get a brighter panel, you get a better video processor. So they want to differentiate them so there's a reason for you to step up. The difference in the processor, again, is all the things that we know. Motion resolution, up conversion quality, detail in the image. So I'm a big proponent of the Alpha 9 Gen 4. So
okay, that makes sense. And this is something that I think maybe Classy could also help. So this question goes back to the HDR 4K 120 displaying it correctly. And is it certain models, Classy, that it's incorrect? Because I know that's the one thing, like you said, that's one of the reasons you returned the X900H. But what about this year, 4K 120 HDR? Well, yeah, some of the OLEDs, some people are saying there's a bit of that color banding. Classy, can you start maybe elaborating on that a little bit, and then we'll get to Robert and John?
So the color banding in HDR at 4K 120 is much more noticeable than at 4K 60, but it's not just on the Sony TVs. It's on the LGs, Samsung, everything. Like all games, if you look in really bright skies or whatever, you're gonna see those like color swirls of, if it's a blue sky, you're gonna see some like pink and purple swirls or whatever. That's just there in the game. But that's why I was saying with Dolby Vision gaming, Dolby Vision has increased dithering to reduce the color banding, and that's why I think like having it on the LG, and if Sony gets a Dolby Vision game mode, that's going to be important because it does clear up that banding that's inherent in the games.
That makes sense to me. Robert, John, you have anything to add to that?
Nope, sorry.
This is why Classy is here.
that's right.
Hey, Cyborg GT, our European agent on the ground, JZ2000 stating it has adaptive HDR10 Plus. What does adaptive mean for TV? When enhanced colors, ATSC3 is USA only, not Europe. They have DVB-T2. Yeah, I wish we'd all be on one standard. HDR10 Plus adaptive, maybe that means the dynamic tone mapping that's scene to scene, or dynamic HDR, right? Yeah. And so it's similar to Dolby Vision, except it's license free, and Samsung helped develop and founded the HDR10 Plus group, so they're pushing it. But qualitatively, subjectively, Robert or John, have you had a chance to look at the differences in terms of, is one better than the other? I mean, arguably some say that Dolby Vision is better, but I have a hard time saying definitively one is better than the other.
I don't know either. They're both dynamic HDR, and they both have metadata that looks at frame by frame and sends that information of peak lumens. But I think they operate technically on paper quite similarly, but you can't compare them because the content is either in Dolby Vision or in HDR10. It's not in both. Or HDR10 Plus, that is.
That makes sense to me. Matthews PLR, I use a Fire Stick 4K and plan to buy the QN90A, has great upscaling. But if I use the Fire Stick 4K, will upscale be done by the stick or the TV? Great upscaling.
Yeah. So it's whatever you set the stick to output is what it's going to do. So in this case, like if you're really worried about it and you want good upscaling, you get the Shield because you can either use its upscaling, or on the Shield you can set the resolution so that it will match it. But on the stick, it only has the match frame rate and match if it's HDR or Dolby Vision, it'll switch. But as far as the upscaling, it'll just auto send 4K to the TV. So I think the Apple TV, I don't know if that forces upscaling, if it forces 4K or if you can match that, but I know the Shield, there's ways to not let it do its upscaling if that's what you want. But to me, if you're buying the Shield, you buy it for the upscaling on it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Classy. You have anything to add, Robert? John?
Yes, thank you. It's very important whenever possible with any source device that you have, cable box, whatever you have, Blu-ray player, streaming device, is to, when possible, you want to pass the native resolution and color space that's coming in. Let the TV do the processing, not
Right.
the audio receiver, not the streaming device, not the source device. Those are cheap processors. Let your television do the processing. Just pass it natively whenever possible. If you don't have native, like on a cable box, you only want to click the boxes 720p and 1080i. You never want to click 1080p.
Except for
Okay, go ahead.
except for Verizon Fios.
Okay.
Except for Verizon Fios. Thank you.
It's just proper. But go ahead, Rob. Robert's generally right there with that.
Okay, thank you.
And okay. Last question, everyone. We're going to let our guests go. So if you didn't get your questions answered, next time we're going to have them on again. And of course, I will have a live stream weekly as well as Classy. Just hop on and ask your questions away. So Ali, you are the last super chat. Thank you so much. Would you recommend the 65 X9030E upgrade to a 65 X95J? I love my 93E. The peak brightness is awesome, but it is edge lit and not 2.1. Good call. So I'll just say, oh, yes, it's a great call. The X95J is generational improvement in so many ways. So, John, Robert, go ahead.
Okay, Rob.
Well, I'm in love with the X95J. I've only seen prototypes when I was helping with the development of it, but it's a big upgrade this year with the XR processor. They've added more local dimming zones than we had last year. They added more LEDs this year. I'm very, very optimistic for the X95J. That's a beautiful natural upgrade from the very worthy X930E.
All right. And John or Classy, any comments?
I would agree with Robert. I mean, the X95J is probably going to be pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm hearing the brightness is amazing. Go ahead, Classy.
I was going to say, just to make sure that he's gaming, otherwise he doesn't need the 2.1, but for the rest of the actual image upgrade, he'll get an upgrade. And then, Robert, I was going to ask, the black levels on the 95J, how do you think it'll compare with the QN90A?
You know, I'm also anxious to see them next to each other. I only saw handmade prototypes. So, and they didn't have the ability to have the remote in my hands and to have test patterns. So I am optimistic because they did add more local dimming zones. They also have overcome the issue where they have the non-glare filter and the X-wide viewing filter on it that in the past has raised blacks. I don't think that's going to happen this year on an X95J. I think we're going to see the same blacks that we have on an X90J. But I'm just optimistic. So I need to see them, but I feel very strongly about the X95J. It's a big upgrade this year in many ways, in both the panel and the processor. So another month away.
And I can't believe how late it's coming out, but better late than never. I'm pretty excited. So, well, with that last question, I have to thank my guests. Thank you, Val Electronics, Robert and John, for coming on. I know your time is precious. You spend all day working, and at the end of the day, you have to come on and answer questions. So thank you for being such gracious guests. Can't wait to have you on again once the QNED is released. Z9J comparisons with the QN900A. I mean, this is a long model year, so that's going to be pretty exciting. And Classy, thanks for coming on and helping out, man. You're always welcome. I think you have a junior apprentice here, John. And of course, the shootout. If everyone hasn't heard, you go back and listen to it. But it's on. It's coming in September, and 50 tickets to the public. So be aware. We'll make sure to let the word out. And until next time, stop the FOMO. Thank you, everyone.